Steve Harvey was 3 questions into Fast Money when something happened that would shake him to his core. The contestant standing at the podium wasn't just playing for prize money. She was playing for survival. And Steve was about to discover that sometimes the people who help others the most are the ones who need help themselves. It was Thursday, November 14th, 2024, and the Family Feud stage was buzzing with its usual energy. 2 families were competing, but something was different about this episode. The Richardson family from Portland was facing off against the Helping Hands team from Chicago. The Helping Hands weren't a traditional family. They were 5 social workers from the same agency who'd worked together for over a decade. At the center podium stood Natalie Swan, 47 years old, with graying auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a navy blue blazer that had seen better days, though she'd tried to make it presentable with a small brooch on the lapel. Her smile was warm but tired, the kind that comes from someone who's learned to find joy despite circumstances. "So tell me about your team," Steve said during the introductions. "The Helping Hands. That's not a family name." Natalie's colleague, Janet Morrison, a woman in her 50s, jumped in. "We're family by choice, Steve. We've worked together at Chicago Community Services for years. Natalie here is our superstar. 22 years of helping families get back on their feet." 22 years? Steve raised his eyebrows. "That's dedication. What made you get into social work, Natalie?" Natalie shifted slightly, her hand gripping the podium. "Someone helped me once, when I needed it most. I promised myself I'd pay it forward for the rest of my life." "That's beautiful," Steve said. "And what kind of work exactly?" "Housing assistance mainly," Natalie replied. "Helping families navigate the system when they're facing eviction or homelessness, making sure kids have stable homes to grow up in." Steve nodded appreciatively. "That's God's work right there. Not many people dedicate their lives to helping others like that. Must be rewarding." "Every day," Natalie said, though something flickered in her eyes. "Every single day." The game began, and the Helping Hands were holding their own. During the second commercial break, Steve noticed Natalie sitting apart from her team, checking a flip phone that looked about 10 years old. She was typing something quickly, then put it away when she saw him approaching. "Everything all right?" Steve asked quietly. "Oh yes, Mr. Harvey. Just checking in with someone," Natalie said, forcing brightness into her voice. "You know how it is. The work never really stops." "Even when you're on Family Feud?" Steve chuckled. "Especially then," Natalie said. "Some of my families don't know I'm here. Took a personal day. They'd worry if they couldn't reach me." Steve studied her for a moment. There was something about the way she said, "my families," that struck him. Not clients, families. The game resumed, and the Helping Hands made it to the final round. They were playing for $20,000, and Steve could see the tension in Natalie's shoulders as she was chosen to go first in Fast Money. "All right, Natalie," Steve said as she stood at the podium. 20 seconds on the clock. You ready?" Natalie took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Here we go. Name something people lose that changes their life." Without hesitation, Natalie answered, "Their home." Steve felt the weight of that answer, but continued. "Name a place people go when they need help." "The library," Natalie said quickly. "Number of months someone can survive on savings." 2, Natalie said, her voice dropping slightly. "Name something that keeps you warm at night." "Hope," Natalie whispered, then louder. "Hope." "Name something every person deserves." "Dignity," Natalie said, tears suddenly appearing in her eyes. "Everyone deserves dignity." The buzzer sounded, and the audience applauded. Steve walked over with his handkerchief, noticing Natalie's hands were shaking. "You did good," he said gently. "Those were some powerful answers." "Just honest ones," Natalie managed. As they were setting up for Janet to take her turn, Steve's producer walked over during what should have been rolling. "Steve, we need to talk to you for a second." "Now?" Steve looked confused. "We're in the middle of Fast Money. It's about Natalie. We just got a call. Several calls, actually. Steve glanced at Natalie, who was being touched up by makeup. What kind of calls? The producer showed Steve his tablet. On it were dozens of messages flooding in through social media, all with the same theme. That's the woman who saved our family. Is that Natalie Swan? She helped us 3 years ago. Oh my God, miss. Swan is on TV. She's the reason we have our home. Steve, the producer said quietly. We did our background check, like always. But we missed something. Or rather, Natalie didn't tell us something. What didn't she tell us? The producer's expression was serious. She's homeless, Steve. Has been for 8 months. Steve's eyes widened. He looked back at Natalie, who was laughing at something Janet had said. How is that possible? She works full-time. She helps other people find housing. That's what we're trying to understand. But Steve, there's more. We have 3 families on the line who recognized her. They want to talk to you. They say it's urgent. Steve looked at the studio audience, at Natalie, at his producer. Put him through to my earpiece. As Janet took her position for fast money, Steve listened to the first caller. It was a woman named Rosa Martinez. Mr. Harvey, that's Natalie Swan. 3 years ago, my husband lost his job and we were evicted with our 4 kids. We were living in our minivan. Natalie worked 18-hour days to get us into transitional housing. But Mr. Harvey, she did more than that. She used her own money to buy my kids' school supplies. She tutored my oldest for the SATs in her free time. We found out later she was using her grocery money to help us. Steve's throat tightened. The second caller was already coming through. Mr. Harvey, my name is James Thompson. That woman saved my life. I was a veteran living under Lower Wacker Drive. Natalie didn't just process my paperwork. She visited me every day for 2 months to make sure I didn't give up. She brought me coffee and sandwiches that I later learned were supposed to be her lunch. She never ate in front of me. Now I know why. The third caller was emotional before she even started speaking. Mr. Harvey, I'm Sarah Chen. Natalie Swan placed my family in permanent housing last year, after we fled domestic violence. But I saw her last week. She was at the library at 11 at night with a suitcase. When I asked if she was traveling, she changed the subject. I followed her outside and saw her get into a beat-up Honda Civic filled with clothes and blankets. Mr. Harvey, she's living in her car. Steve had to compose himself. Janet was finishing up her fast money answers. They'd won $15,000 together. Not enough for the grand prize, but respectable. As the team celebrated, Steve made a decision. Hold on, everybody, Steve said, walking to center stage. We need to talk about something. The studio grew quiet. Natalie looked confused. Natalie Swan, Steve said, looking directly at her. 22 years of social work. How many families would you say you've helped find housing? Natalie looked uncomfortable with the spotlight. I don't really keep count, Mr. Harvey. Ballpark it for me. Maybe 400, 500 families? 500 families, Steve repeated. That's what, maybe 2,000 people whose lives you've directly impacted? I suppose, Natalie said quietly. And in all that time, helping all those people, did you ever think you'd need help yourself? Natalie's face went pale. I don't understand what you're asking. Janet spoke up, confused. Steve, what's going on? Steve turned to the team. Did any of you know that your colleague, your friend, the woman you call your superstar, has been living in her car for the past 8 months? The gasps from her colleagues were genuine. Janet's hand went to her mouth. Natalie, no. That's not. That can't be true. Natalie's shoulders sagged. The weight she'd been carrying finally visible. It's temporary. I'm handling it. How? Steve asked gently. How did this happen? Natalie wiped her eyes, trying to maintain composure. Identity theft? Someone got my information and destroyed my credit. Emptied my savings, my retirement, everything. took out loans in my name. By the time I discovered it, I owed $90,000 I never borrowed. The courts are sorting it out, but that takes time. I couldn't keep up with rent while paying lawyers and trying to clear my name. Why didn't you tell us? Janet was crying now. We work together every day. We're supposed to be family. Because I couldn't, Natalie said, her voice breaking. How could I help families trust the system if they knew the person helping them couldn't even help herself? How could I tell someone it gets better when I'm washing my hair in a gym sink before work? Steve stepped closer. Where do you park at night? Different places, Natalie admitted. Walmart parking lots, rest stops, sometimes the hospital garage. It's safer there, and they have 24-hour bathrooms. Winter's coming, Steve said. Chicago winters. How were you planning to survive that in a car? I'll figure it out, Natalie said. But even she didn't sound convinced. I always figure it out. Steve turned to the audience. This woman has spent 22 years of her life making sure other people have roofs over their heads. She's used her own money, her own time, her own food to help others. And when she needed help, she was too proud or too ashamed to ask for it. He walked back to Natalie. You said someone helped you once when you needed it most. Tell me about that. Natalie was crying now, no longer able to hold it back. I was 17. My mom died and I was going to age out of foster care with nowhere to go. A social worker named Margaret Quinn took me in. Unofficially. Against all the rules. She let me live in her spare room until I graduated high school. Got me into college. She saved my life. And you've been paying it forward ever since? Every day. Steve looked at his producer, who nodded. They'd made some calls during the conversation. Natalie, I want you to listen to something, Steve said. He signaled to the sound booth. A voice came over the speakers. It was elderly, but strong. Natalie? Natalie, honey, is that you? Natalie gasped. Margaret. Miss Quinn? I've been watching, sweetheart. I've been watching everything you've become. I'm 91 years old now, and I've never been prouder of anyone in my life. You're watching? Natalie sobbed. I haven't seen you in 15 years. I tried to find you, but I moved to Florida with my daughter. But Natalie, listen to me. What I did for you wasn't charity. It was an investment, and you've paid dividends beyond my wildest dreams. But honey, even heroes need help sometimes. The call ended, and Steve turned back to Natalie. She's right. Heroes do need help. And that's why we're going to do something. But first, there are some people who want to talk to you. The studio doors opened, and people began walking in. First was Rosa Martinez with her 4 children, all wearing caps and gowns from various graduations. Then James Thompson in a suit, holding a briefcase. Then Sarah Chen with her teenage daughters. But they kept coming. 10 families. 20. 30. The studio was filling with people, all looking at Natalie with tears in their eyes. These are just some of them, Steve said. Just the ones who could make it on short notice. Every single person here had their life changed by you. Rosa Martinez stepped forward with a microphone. Miss Swan, you saved our family. My oldest is at Northwestern now, because of the tutoring you gave him. My second is going to nursing school. You did that. James Thompson spoke next. I'm a counselor now at the VA. I help other vets like you helped me. You taught me that dignity matters more than circumstances. I've been looking for you for 2 years to thank you. Sarah Chen was crying as she spoke. You told me I was brave for leaving my abuser, but you're the brave one, working every day to help others while hiding your own pain. Steve let them speak, then raised his hand for quiet. Natalie, these families found out about your situation about an hour ago when you went on the air. Do you know what they did? They started a group text. Then, a conference call. Then, this. He showed her his tablet. On it was a crowdfunding page. Help our hero, Natalie Swan. It had been live for 45 minutes. The total was already at $173,000 and climbing. "That's not possible," Natalie whispered. "That's not." "It's still going up," Steve said. A man in an expensive suit walked onto the stage. "Miss Swan, my name is Robert Kellerman. I'm the CEO of Kellerman Properties. We own 14 apartment buildings in Chicago." Natalie looked confused. "Okay. 10 years ago, you helped my mother when I was deployed overseas. She never told me she'd been evicted until years later. You not only found her housing, you visited her every week until I came home. She passed away last year, but she never forgot you. She made me promise that if I ever had the chance to repay you, I would." He handed her an envelope. "This is a lease. Rent-free. For life. Any of our properties. Wherever you want to live. It's the least we can do." Natalie's legs gave out. Steve and Janet caught her, helping her to a chair. "There's more," Steve said gently. "The identity theft that ruined your credit? My foundation has been in touch with the state attorney general's office. They're expediting your case. We've also hired a team of lawyers who specialize in identity theft recovery. They're working pro bono." "Why?" Natalie asked through her tears. "Why would you do all this?" "Because you did it first," Steve said. "For 22 years, you've been doing it first. Without cameras, without recognition, without anybody knowing. You've been love in action." Janet grabbed the microphone. "Natalie, I need to say something. We worked together for 12 years and I never knew you were struggling. That's on me. That's on all of us. We got so used to you being the strong one, the helper, that we forgot helpers need help too." The other team members gathered around Natalie, embracing her. Steve wasn't done. "Natalie, there's one more person who wants to talk to you." The studio doors opened again, and a young woman walked in. She was professionally dressed, successful looking, maybe 30 years old. Natalie looked at her in confusion. Then, recognition dawned. "Emma?" Natalie gasped. "Emma, is that you?" The woman ran to Natalie, falling into her arms. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The audience was confused. Steve explained. "This is Natalie's daughter, Emma. They've been estranged for 5 years." Emma pulled back, looking at her mother through tears. "I was so angry when you and Dad divorced. I blamed you for everything. I said horrible things. I cut you off. And you just let me. You never fought back, never defended yourself. You were hurting," Natalie said, touching her daughter's face. "I understood." "No, Mom. I found out the truth. Dad told me everything last month. About his gambling addiction. About how you took out loans to cover his debts so we wouldn't lose the house. About how you protected me from knowing how bad it was. You let me hate you rather than hate him." "You needed your father," Natalie said simply. "I needed my mother," Emma sobbed. "And when I finally tried to find you, you'd moved, changed your number. I've been searching for 6 months. When I saw you on TV today, I couldn't believe it. Mom, while I was living in my luxury apartment, angry at you, you were sleeping in your car." "I'm okay," Natalie said, comforting her daughter even now. "I'm okay." "No, you're not," Emma said firmly. "But you will be. I'm an attorney now, Mom. Like you always wanted me to be. I'm taking over your identity theft case personally, and you're coming home with me today." Steve stepped back, letting the reunion happen. The audience was on their feet, applauding through tears. The other families who'd come to support Natalie were embracing each other, sharing their own stories of how she'd helped them. After several minutes, Steve called for quiet. "We're not done yet. Natalie, you know that $15,000 your team won in fast money? Yes? We're changing the rules today. The production company has agreed to match it times 10. That's $150,000 to be split among your team. But your teammates have something to say about that." Janet took the microphone again. We took a vote while you were reuniting with Emma. Unanimous decision. The entire prize goes to you." "I can't accept that," Natalie protested. "We're a team." "Yes, we are," Janet said. "And teams take care of each other. You've been taking care of everyone else for 22 years. It's time to let us take care of you." Steve added, "The government just announced a special commendation for outstanding social workers. It comes with a lifetime pension. Natalie Swan, you're one of 5 recipients nationwide this year. You'll never have to worry about housing again." Natalie was overwhelmed. Unable to speak, Steve continued, addressing the camera directly. "America. We see stories every day about people failing each other. But here's someone who didn't fail. Not once. Not in 22 years. Even when she lost everything, she showed up to work every day to make sure other people didn't lose everything too. She lived in her car so she could keep helping families find homes." He turned back to Natalie. "You know what the saddest part of this story is? You were ashamed. You thought needing help meant you were failing. But needing help just means you're human. And asking for help? That takes more courage than anything else." Natalie finally found her voice. "I don't know what to say. I've been pretending for so long." "Pretending to be okay. Using the gym at 5 a.m. to shower. Doing laundry at the laundromat at midnight so no one would see me with all my clothes. Eating 1 meal a day so I could afford gas to get to work. I was so tired. So incredibly tired. But you never stopped helping others," Steve said. "I couldn't," Natalie replied. "Every family I placed in housing, I thought, that's one more family that won't go through what I'm going through. It kept me going." Steve asked Emma, "What made your father finally tell you the truth?" Emma wiped her eyes. "He's in recovery now. Part of his program is making amends. He told me everything. How Mom took the fall for his debts. How she agreed to the divorce terms that left her with nothing so I wouldn't find out about his addiction. How she'd been sending him money even after the divorce to help with his treatment, even while she was homeless." "She was helping him while living in her car?" Steve asked, incredulous. "That's Mom," Emma said, looking at Natalie with a mixture of love and pain. "She helps everyone but herself." One of the families in the audience called out, "Not anymore! We've got her now!" The crowd erupted in agreement. The crowdfunding page had hit $300,000. Messages were pouring in from social workers nationwide, from families Natalie had helped years ago, from complete strangers moved by her story. Steve brought the show back to focus. "Natalie, earlier you said the library was where people go when they need help. That's where you were going, wasn't it? Not just for others." Natalie nodded. "Libraries are warm. They have bathrooms, internet. You can exist there without anyone asking questions. I could do my case notes, help my clients apply for services. And they have this wonderful security guard, Marcus, who pretends not to notice when I fall asleep at the computers." "Marcus Washington?" Steve asked, looking at his producer. "We talked to him." "He knew? He figured it out," Natalie said. "Started leaving sandwiches on the desk. Said someone forgot them. Every day, someone conveniently forgot a sandwich right where I sit." "He's here," Steve said. "Marcus, come on out." A large, elderly black man walked onto the stage, his security uniform neat and pressed. He went straight to Natalie and hugged her gently. "This lady," Marcus said to Steve, "would help people fill out housing applications until the library closed, then sleep in her car in the parking lot. I started keeping the library open an extra hour, telling my boss I was doing extra cleaning, just so she'd have one more hour somewhere warm." "You knew and didn't report it?" Steve asked. "Report what?" Marcus said defiantly. "A social worker using the library? That's what libraries are for. Besides, I've seen her help more people in that library than most folks help in a lifetime. You don't report angels, Mr. Harvey. You protect them." Natalie was sobbing now, overwhelmed by the kindness being shown. I was so scared someone would find out, that I'd lose my job, lose my ability to help people. Her supervisor, Janet, spoke up. Natalie, we're restructuring the agency, creating a new position, Director of Community Outreach and Staff Wellness. It comes with a substantial raise and, more importantly, resources to help our social workers when they're struggling. No one should suffer in silence like you did. We want you to lead this program. But I couldn't even help myself, Natalie protested. That's exactly why you're perfect for it, Janet replied. You understand. You've lived it. Steve looked at the camera again. This story isn't unique, America. There are social workers, teachers, healthcare workers, first responders, people who dedicate their lives to helping others, and many of them are one crisis away from disaster themselves. They're too proud or too tired or too focused on others to ask for help. He turned back to Natalie. You said everyone deserves dignity. Do you believe that includes you? For the first time, Natalie smiled genuinely. I'm learning to. The audience erupted in applause. Steve announced one final surprise. Natalie, that car you've been living in, is it the 2009 Honda Civic in the parking lot? How did you? Yes, it's being replaced. Ford Motor Company is providing you with a new vehicle, fully paid, insurance covered for 5 years. But more importantly, you'll never need to sleep in it. A Ford executive came on stage. Miss Swan, we were moved by your story, but we want to do more. We're creating the Natalie Swan Fund, starting with $500,000 to help social workers in crisis. Because the people who help others shouldn't have to suffer alone. The crowdfunding page had now exceeded $400,000. Messages were being read aloud from families Natalie had helped over the years, each one a testimony to her impact. A teenage boy in the audience stood up. Miss Swan, you don't remember me, but you helped my mom and me 5 years ago when my dad died. We were going to be evicted. You worked for 3 weeks straight to keep us in our apartment. You gave my mom your lunch money for my school supplies. I'm going to college next year because we had stable housing to finish high school. You did that. Story after story emerged, each person sharing how Natalie had gone above and beyond, using her own resources, her own time, her own money to help them. Emma held her mother's hand tightly. Mom, I've been successful. I make good money, and you were sleeping in your car rather than ask me for help. Why? You were angry with me, Natalie said softly. I didn't want you to think I was manipulating you or trying to buy your forgiveness. Mom, Emma said firmly, your forgiveness was never something that needed to be bought. It was freely given, even when I was horrible to you. That's who you are. Steve brought the show to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed today is what humanity looks like at its best. A woman who gave everything to help others, even when she had nothing. Families who remembered kindness and repaid it. A community that rallied around someone who'd rallied around them. He turned to Natalie one last time. You saved 500 families. Today, 500 families are saving you. That's not charity. That's not pity. That's love returning to its source. Natalie stood, supported by Emma and her colleagues. I spent 8 months believing I was a failure, that everything I'd worked for meant nothing if I couldn't even keep a roof over my own head. But maybe this was supposed to happen. Maybe people needed to see that helpers need help too. What are you going to do now? Steve asked. Natalie looked at Emma, at her colleagues, at all the families filling the studio. I'm going to do what I've always done, help people. But now I'm going to do it with the understanding that accepting help is just as important as giving it. The show ended with an unprecedented scene. The entire studio, both families, all the guests, the crew, even Steve, in a group embrace around Natalie. The cameras kept rolling, capturing a moment of pure human connection. Later, Steve would say it was the most powerful episode of Family Feud ever filmed, not because of the surprises or the drama, but because it showed America something vital: that the people who hold us up sometimes need holding up themselves. 3 months later, Natalie Swan stood in her new apartment, funded by the kindness of strangers who'd become family. Emma lived just 2 floors up, their relationship rebuilt on a foundation of truth and forgiveness. The Natalie Swan Fund had already helped 47 social workers in crisis. She kept a photo from that Family Feud episode on her dresser, not of the moment she received the prizes or the surprises, but of Marcus the librarian hugging her. A reminder that kindness exists in quiet places, that dignity isn't about never falling, but about how we help each other get back up. The identity theft case was resolved. The criminals were prosecuted. Natalie's credit was restored. But more importantly, her faith in humanity was renewed. Not because she'd been saved, but because she learned that the love she'd spent 22 years giving had been planting seeds that would bloom when she needed them most. She still works at Chicago Community Services, now as Director of Community Outreach and Staff Wellness. The first program she implemented? Monthly check-ins for all social workers, making sure no one suffers in silence again. The second? A partnership with local libraries to provide safe spaces for anyone in need, inspired by Marcus Washington. Every week, she gets messages from social workers around the country who saw the episode. Some share their own struggles. Others ask for help. All of them say the same thing. Seeing her story gave them permission to admit they weren't okay. Steve Harvey keeps in touch. He calls her monthly, checking in. He told her once that in 30 years of television, her story affected him most deeply. Not because of the tragedy, but because of the triumph. The triumph of human kindness over circumstances. The episode aired with a simple dedication. To all the helpers who need help, you are not alone. Your service matters. Your struggle is valid, and your dignity is intact. Natalie Swan's story became more than just a Family Feud episode. It became a movement. Help the Helpers started trending. Programs were developed nationwide to support social workers in crisis. Universities created emergency funds for students studying social work. But for Natalie, the most important change was personal. She learned that strength isn't never needing help. It's having the courage to accept it when offered. She learned that dignity isn't about maintaining a perfect image. It's about being honest about our struggles. And she learned that sometimes the families we create through service are just as strong as the ones we're born into. The phone call that interrupted Family Feud that day wasn't really from outside. It was from the hundreds of families whose lives she'd touched, calling back to say thank you. It was love returning home, just like Natalie finally did.